Why do we want to get present to the moment? Why do we want to turn off the mind, get into our body, and just breathe? Well, the consequence of not getting present to the moment, experiencing flow, overwhelming the thinking mind, is that if you don't do this, if you don't overwhelm the thinking mind, if you don't flip the switch, if you don't learn how to do that, then you will, as I did, quite frankly, by my own admission, for the first 20 years of my life, succumb to analysis paralysis. What does that mean? Analysis paralysis means that you're living not in the frame that is before you, but as if there's a second script. There's a second script being narrated by the petty ego inside your own head. And the working title is, I'll never be enough. I'll never be enough is the working title of the second script that is, in a sense, illusory, because that illusion is created by your concern of how your ego is being perceived. And effectively, what you become is what you think other people think you are, which is so many steps removed from the glory, the abundance, the beauty, and bliss of the present moment. And the present moment is, to be honest, all that I've ever wanted for you, is to experience that. To experience it in its enormity, in its delectable, delicious fashion. Getting present means that you actually arrive. So often in our lives, we are striving. I think back to my college years, my early 20s, to the countless hundreds of people, women that I cold approached, just thinking that I would finally be enough. I would finally be this macho man who was just able to pull girls on a whim, girls that I deemed attractive. I thought that the more bicep curls that I did, the more that I could bench press, the bigger my cock was, frankly, the better that I was, the more favorably that I could view myself. In other words, my confidence was contingent on externalities. This guy's just blew up his exhaust, just like hammering down on the gas, because he doesn't feel like enough, right? This idea of super compensating, driving a fast car, lifting more weights, getting more girls. What you realize is that there's actually no logical endpoint to that. Like when you take that paradigm to its logical conclusion, there he goes again. Woo! Attaboy, there he goes again. What you realize is that when you take that to its logical conclusion, there actually is no there is no finish line. I'm on a track right now, and yeah, I guess there's no obvious endpoint to that. In other words, you can keep striving ad infinitum, but what you realize is that there's never actually some definitive point, at least by all objective measures, that you arrive. And so what you realize is that you just have to make the decision to arrive today, to land the plane, to be the own pilot of your life, and to realize that you just don't want to be outsourcing your own authority, your own opinion to other people. What you have to realize is that abundance is now. Presence, bliss, it's all in reach, but what you're doing is you're putting all of these unnecessary barriers in between where you are right now and that state of abundance. Just all of these hoops that you have to jump through, all of these externalities that you have to accumulate, all of these songs and dances that you have to perform. And what I'm saying is that it's all bullshit. And if you want to perform those songs and dances, don't do it to impress other people. Don't do it to garner a more favorable perception of yourself. Do it for the sake of doing it. Do it for the sake of the song and the dance itself, for the beauty of it, for getting present to the moment. Because notice that if you're performing a particular song and dance for what that's going to give you, then in the act of performing it, you're already thinking about the prize. You're not even engaged in the process, all the while not realizing that, in fact, that process is the prize, and there never was a finish line, only in the illusory imagination of yourself. Woo! So, at the end of the day, you have to finally land the plane. You have to realize that you are enough. No matter what other people have said about you, whatever negative experiences maybe you have, maybe bad programming, some childhood trauma, just some early experiences that have, for better or worse, shifted your own self-image, your perception, maybe shook up your confidence a little bit. It's okay. You are enough in this moment right now. You just have to realize that. That's the power of getting present to the moment. That is the power of now, as Eckhart Tolle would say. So there's a lot of different ways that you can get there, okay? I'm not saying do a 10-day silent Vipassana meditation retreat. I think that's great, aside from the fact that they feed you just virtually all plant-based foods. There's, aside from milk, and a lot of people have dairy intolerances, so that will not suffice for them. It's largely a vegan diet that they feed you. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do a 10-day silent meditation retreat. There are other activities that can engage flow. Maybe you're a good skier, just going down a mountain and being engaged in an activity that shuts off the mind. Maybe you want to jump out of a perfectly good airplane. Hey, I'm all ears. Let's do that too. That sounds really good right now. And that will give you a glimpse. That will allow you to peek behind the curtain of what is possible living in this state of abundance. And look, I'm not saying that you live there indefinitely. I'm not saying that I'm permanently enlightened, but when you have these experiences, it's going to permanently change your paradigm, your perspective. And so let's say you do jump out of a perfectly good airplane. What you're gonna realize is that the activity of that is going to overwhelm the thinking mind. And so in that moment, maybe for the first time in your life, you will be purely present to that moment. And it will just dawn on you. The question that necessarily will be begged is, wow, how do I get more of this? How do I get more of that present energy into my life? And in a lot of ways, virtually all of my teachings are pointing you there. When I talk about fixing your physiology, optimizing your sleep, putting food first, finding your freedom, right? All of this is pointing you back to that state of abundance, to actually arriving. And one of the paradoxical facets, quite frankly, of my teaching is that it is inherently action-based. And I recognize the catch-22 of that, right? Because by acting, you are necessarily striving. These are synonymous. But at some point, you just gotta let it land, baby. You just gotta let it land. Let a good thing land. Be receptive. Let the beauty of life really sink in. Really marinate in that. I'm not saying you have to stop striving, but just realize that there is no logical finish line that you can get to. And so do all of the things, all of the good habits. Do the cold showers, build the discipline, the meditation, optimizing your nutrition, becoming socially savvy, learning how to pull girls. That's great. That's really great. But do that from a position of abundance where you don't have to do it to prove it to anybody. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, the shortcut here is to realize that it doesn't matter. Like, there is no finish line. That is ultimately illusory. But it doesn't mean that you don't play the game. Still play the game. once you beat the game, you unlock sandbox mode and you can just kind of toy around. It doesn't mean like you stop playing. It just means that it recontextualizes your relationship to the game and you realize that it was never really real in a sense. Just like your ego, you can realize it's not really real. Like it doesn't really matter, does it? Like have you ever had this thought like, why does it actually matter the way that other people perceive me? And maybe that's unrelatable for you right now. And I'm sorry if that's the case, I really am. But maybe you just imagine interfacing with life in a way that it really didn't matter. And you really did feel free to actually take a chance on being you, on being yourself, being authentic. Just expressing yourself from a position of abundance. I love you very much. Thank you so much for checking out this video today. Drop a comment down below. What was your major takeaway from this video? Are you going to choose a life of scarcity or one of abundance? Thanks again, my friend. And until next time, find your freedom. Peace.